be a 7-story mansion for all they care. They don't want it. Marina suggests they just buy the last house they saw since that one was pretty good, and Yuka agrees to that. Same day they get everyone's stuff moved over to the new house. Yuka says he will help the girls put their stuff in the house, so he asks if they decided which rooms they want, but they were actually waiting for Yuka to choose his room first. Yuka is confused, so he asks them if they are saying they want him to live with them, and that's exactly what the girls are saying, since this is meant to be a party base after all, and it's all thanks to Yuka that they could even afford to buy the house in the first place, so of course they want him to live with them. Yuka is hesitant to live under the same roof as the girls, but Marina reminds him that when they camp out on their adventures, Yuka has no problem sleeping right next to them, so this shouldn't be any different. It's hard to argue with that logic, so Yuka agrees to move in, but he's setting some ground rules. He tells the girls to keep in mind that he's a man, so they have to actually use their door locks when they are changing their clothes or something. He just really doesn't want to get forced into embarrassing situations, and as long as they all respect each other's privacy, there shouldn't be any issues. With that settled, they sit down at the lunch table to eat and toast to their future as Clover. However, Yuka notices that Rain is a little distracted, so he looks at the TV, and to his surprise he sees a report about a party taking one the Achromatic Darkness dungeon. The announcer talks about how Thunderpike receives permission from the guild to perform an investigation in the Achromatic dungeon, and they apart teamed up with another party, all with the aim of reaching the Abyss Gate. Hearing that Thunderpike is going after his dream is a massive slap in the face to Yuka, and the girls think he must be really upset, but he actually says he is fine. After all, it's not like it's a race, and if he's going to take on the Achromatic dungeon, he wants to do it with Clover, and he couldn't care less if Thunderpike wants to do it before him. He wants to just forget about them and continue with her meal, but then he gets some mail from the guild saying he is being summoned. He and Rain go to see what this is about, and they are informed the party has specifically requested Yuka's help on an upcoming mission of theirs. Yuka is curious about the request at first, but then he sees that it is from Thunderpike, so he immediately rejects it and goes on with his day. However, a couple minutes later Simon is informed that Yuka could decline the request, so he goes out of his way to track Yuka down and demand an explanation. Yuka was expecting something like this to happen, so he turns to face Simum, and Simone demands to know what reason Yuka had for rejecting their request. Yuka tells him there's no special reason behind it decision, he simply doesn't want to work with Thunderpike under any circumstances, even if it's for his dream. He's honestly surprised that Simone even remember that his dream was to find an Abyss Gate, but he has no plans on getting involved, so he wishes Simone the best of luck on his mission. Simone tries to guilt Yuka into reconsidering by saying he already started making preparations around Yuka's participation, but that sounds like a Simone problem, so why should he care in the first place? It was incredibly rude to send a spot request to someone who is already in an active party, and as long as it's a request, Yuka has every right to refuse for whatever reason he chooses. Simum gets angry and tells Yuka he is in the wrong for abandoning Thunderpike, but Yuka is at his limit and yells back that Simone is the one in the wrong here while Yuka was in Thunderpike. Everything from pre-quest preparations, quest research, and even intel gathering was dumped on Yuka's shoulders, and not once did Simone show any gratitude for all the work he put in. All Sean ever did was use him, so as far as Yuka is concerned they are no longer friends. Simone is stunned and asks Yuka what he's supposed to do now, since if Thunderpike fails another quest they'll be demoted again. That's not Yuka's problem to deal with, so he takes Rain's hand and walks away. 2 weeks later Yuka meets with the guild master and got some bad news to share. It looks like a dungeon overflow really is occurring, because in addition to what happened to Yuka's party in Ion, there have been several other incidents around the country. Given the circumstances, the Royal Academy couldn't deny the possibility of a dungeon stampede, which is likely why they granted Thunderpike permission to investigate the Achromatic Darkness. With that said, Benwood wants to nominate Yuka and the rest of Clover for an investment quest in the Achromatic Darkness. Yuka immediately tells Benwood he can't accept the quest because there's no way a C-rank party like Clover can do a job like this. Besides, even if Thunderpike isn't reliable, there are other A-rank parties included in the Achromatic Dungeon investigation. However, Benwood tells him that the other parties have gotten fed up with Thunderpike's tricks and backed out of the mission. In fact, it looks like Thunderpike never actually intended to go on the mission, because they haven't even submitted a formal application for the mission. Ben then pulls out a logbook and shows it to Yuka, but Yuka already knows exactly what this is because it is the only Conquest log of the last mission into the Achromatic dungeon, and in it there is proof that the Abyss Gate exists. That's exactly why Ben wants Yuka to do the investigation, because he is passionate about the Abyss Gate, and if it's him, any reports he makes can be completely trusted. He isn't asking Yuka to have conquer the entire dungeon, he just wants him to take a look inside, but to do that Yuka would have to fight his way through the dungeon, and he thinks that would be too risky. Benwood understands his concerns, which is why he is willing to give Yuka this for the quest. It's a scroll of exit, and with it Yuka can leave the dungeon instantly whenever he wants, so Benwood asks Yuka to reconsider. Just then Memar comes in and hands Yuka the formal request form for this mission, and it says he will be joining a party called King of Welmelia, and his party will be granted provincial status for the duration of the mission. This is starting to sound like a really big deal, so Yuka says he needs to talk to his party members about it before making a decision. After getting home, Yuka tells the girls about the request and tells them that he's actually thinking of turning it down. The girls are surprised that he would reject such a huge opportunity, and Yuka understands that participating would be a great boost for their party, but he doesn't think they are ready for it. There's still a ton of experience and preparations they are missing, but while they can't do much about their lack of experience, Silk tells Yuka they can still make the necessary preparations before the mission begins. Ryan asked Yuka if he's scared for some reason, and Yuka hadn't thought about it till now, but he really is scared. His worry that he might lose the girls if they take on a dangerous mission like this, because that's the last thing he would want to happen. The girls feel the same way about him, but they promise to do everything they can to make sure they come back from the mission safely so Yuka can trust them to handle themselves. Yuka realizes he was being overly cautious and apologizes to the girls for not believing in them. They all agree to take on the Achromatic dungeon together, and later that day the group heads back to the guild to tell Benwood that they are accepting the quest, but they talked it over and they may need an extra person, so they ask if he can introduce them to a good scout. Mommer has expected something like this, so she already has someone lined up. This is Nen, and she's the daughter of one of Mam's friends, but after one too many pranks she got banned from her homeland, so Mommer took her in and helped her change her life around. Nan introduces herself as a former FY thief, but now she is AC ranked ninja, and she promises to make herself useful to the team, so she asked to be hired as the end.